Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or your digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organization. Each and every episode, we sit down with leaders from various fields, just like you're grabbing a cup of coffee with them. We dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, have you ever experienced any divine appointments in your life? How can recognizing these divine appointments in your life lead to unexpected miracles and really transform your life, your faith journey, how you approach your business, how you approach your family life? Maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, I could really use one of those divine appointments. Maybe you're stuck. Maybe you're not really getting the traction in your life that you're looking for. Well, today is your lucky day. I cannot wait to dive into more of this conversation on the Speak with People podcast. We're going to talk about these incredibly important areas, especially for us leaders who are influencing other people's lives, our inner world, and getting some of these things in order is of the utmost importance. Today, I'm just honored. I get to interview a longtime friend. I was trying to figure it out this morning how long we've known each other, but it's been quite a while. He's a leader that I admire a ton, always blessed with every conversation we have on the phone. He's a local school board member. He's coached in his area. He's a business owner. He's also a pastor. He's an author. And I like to joke with him. He holds more degrees than I do actual pieces of paper. And he's just a fantastic communicator. And so I want to welcome Brad Ratliff to the Speak with People podcast. Welcome, my friend.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be a part of it. I've been watching your podcast, and it's cool to be on this side of it. So yeah, thanks for letting me share words. So
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, take us a little bit more into your story before we hop into the conversation. Who are you? What do you do? How'd you get to this place in life?
yeah, so I'm a minister. I've been a full-time minister for the last 25 years. And through all that, I've done a lot of different things, worked with a lot of different churches, done college ministry, worship stuff. Now I'm a teaching pastor. So I've gotten to experience a lot of different things. Also, if you know anything about the church world, I have branched out into trying to make money elsewhere as well. And so me and my wife actually have recently, we flip houses. So I own a company. We buy and sell houses. And then stupid, if not, I don't know if it is or not, but I actually put myself in there and I ran for election. And so now I'm on the school board in my area in the city. And I basically just get mean emails from parents. So I'm glad I got to sign up for that. No one told me that when I was running. But I should have known because we ran recently and no one ran against me. So it kind of tells you how it is the lowest rung of politics you can be a part of. So,
Wow.
I love our community. And so I've been thinking and praying, like, how can I give back? How can I serve? And I just thought, hey, this is a cool way to, instead of complaining all the time, be a part of the solution. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that's where I'm at. I got 2 awesome kids and a wife that we've been married for 24 years, 23
Wow.
years. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what's really fascinating? 160 some episodes, only 3 people, you are now the third, have talked about their family during the story introduction part.
Yeah.
Wild, huh?
Well,
It's just wild to me.
Yeah, I like mine. Yeah. So
I love it.
My wife and my daughter were gone for the weekend, and I was kind of we were lonely here without them.
Slumping around.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I imagine some of the emails that you've received as a school board member are, what would you and if you can't answer it, no worries. But what do you think is the percentage of encouraging emails to, ticked off, frustrated, angry, upset emails?
Oh, 99% upset. Yeah. I think, sometimes in person, people will say, hey, thanks so much for what you do, or, appreciate that. And then let me take it back a little bit. there are times when I'm able to give them information or help that I do get a response email that is
Yeah.
encouraging. But I would say 99% of the time, if I see an email come through from a parent or a teacher or somebody in the district, it's usually, you're the worst person ever. Why are you doing what you do? You shouldn't be alive. I mean, they're pretty rough.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
Wow.
like, I don't get paid for this, right? So, but yeah,
This is
yeah.
this is free. What I bet though on the other side you have just seen and experienced so many great stories from teachers who just give sacrificially and pour into students' lives. That's got to be super fulfilling as well.
Oh yeah, there are some times where I was, and I think that's what keep made me want to do it again. Is because there are conversations that I get to have one on one with teachers, principals, even parents, where I can help, and just to hear some of the teachers' stories and why they do what they do. I mean, because they're not paid well,
Yeah.
and it's a hard job, but some of them, their heart behind it and their reason behind it and their desire to help students just be better all around. Those are the ones that make it exciting. And those are the ones that don't get as much credit because they do their job, and they show up every day. And they, I usually, again, even still, I still only usually brought in when there's problems for the school system. So I love getting to just walk around the schools. I get to pray for teachers and principals. The first day of school, I got to go to all the schools and just say, "Hey, we're rooting for you." And so that's a cool part of the job, is to being
Yeah.
able to just be in there and say, hey, you are seen, you are valued, you're recognized. So
Wow. Talking about such an important part of communication. It's amazing. You wonder how different our culture, how different our organizations, our companies, our churches, our schools would be if we just, change that, you know, that amount a little bit. Cause you know, I like to say, I think most of us, our encouragement tanks are running on empty. I don't know many people that turn down encouragement. If they're like, hey, no, I'm fine. Like I got plenty of encouragement. I don't need to know that I'm doing a good job. Not many people, unless they're, a real interesting sort, turn that stuff down. So what would it look like if instead of like immediately attacking, immediately assuming the worst, we turn that around? Oof. There,
yeah,
there could be some change that happens.
absolutely. I think even with just the divine appointments that I've been really studying and talking about, some of my biggest ones have been random text or random
Mm,
emails that somebody will send, and they think this is a throwaway comment, but there have been times where I've been at my lowest and
yep.
someone just today, honestly, I got an email from a lady who said, hey, I just want to reach out because I spoke at our church recently, and she said, I've been thinking about it. This has been 3 weeks ago since I spoke, and she sent me this email saying, hey, what you said, it meant a lot to me, it meant a lot to my family. I just want to say thank you for sharing that, and I needed that today,
Yeah.
and I think that those are those kind of things where, when we are more aware of opportunities to encourage and to love on people. And I think sometimes we think it's not going to do any good. It's not worth it. They probably
Yep.
already know, but I'm telling you, this random lady sent me an email today, and it changed my outlook on the day,
Yeah.
And so I went from being like, oh, we got to get through this day, to, hey, that's cool. I was a part of a story now
Yep.
of someone else where, I was able to do something, that I love doing, but it also was able to encourage and help somebody else. So yeah, I think
It's amazing.
encouragement is, gosh, it's so important.
I love that.
So
The right words. The right words. They can open up doors. They can start relationships. They can, put a pep in your step. They can, pull your head up to kind of go, okay, I'm going to stop focusing on that. It's
yeah,
just so important. So as you kind of been on this journey of like kind of researching divine appointments,
yeah.
what started it for you? Why did you start going down that, that route? What inspired you to kind of get inside of that?
I think it started with, being a speaker. And I know that you tell fantastic stories, and I've always loved your stories. But afterwards, people would come up to me and go, how come I don't have any cool stories? How come nothing like that ever happens to me? Did that really happen? I don't believe it. And I'm always like,
Yep.
well, ask my wife. It's true. But I started thinking, why me? Like, why do I have these stories? And I started to realize that it wasn't so much that there was something special about me. It was that I was paying attention. that I
Whoa.
was
Yeah.
having generous eyes. I was looking for connections and opportunities, and instead of shying away from those conversations, I was leaning into them. And because of that, I got to experience something that is, I think everyone has the opportunity to experience. We just, we get, I call it stingy eyes. We just get eyes that kind of look at ourselves and look inward so often that we miss these cool things that happen all around us all the time. And so I started just kind of diving into it. And then I saw that there were stories in the Bible that connected to these divine appointments. And then there's stories, really cool stories just in history. And then just kind of my stories as well. And so just really started thinking, how do I put all this together? And so that's kind of where the beginning started. And then I really was challenged by some people to finally put the book into print. I know for me, it was the imposter syndrome. Like there's nobody wants to hear what I have to say, right? Somebody else has written it better. Uh, but I really think there were some people that were like, who cares if whether anybody else wants it or not? If you feel like you're supposed to do it, do it. And
Yeah.
so I was extremely grateful for my family and my wife and some other people who were just like, hey, who cares? Just do it. And so we finally did it. And it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It's different than writing a sermon or writing a speech. Writing a book is tough, especially when your grammar is as bad as mine. So, yeah.
What? Just we'll pause on divine appointment for a second. Just talk to us about, because I know a lot of our listeners, they're writing books. They want to write books. Uh, what did you find success? Did you set a schedule? Did you just push yourself? Did you just try to write for 30 minutes? Like, was there anything that really, stuck out that went, okay, when I did that, I was able to kind of plow through it and finish it?
I think that one of the things that helped me is when I couldn't write, I didn't beat myself up about
Mm,
it. I just stopped
yeah.
and took a break and did something else.
Yeah.
I also found that having my book, or at that time just manuscript, on multiple different platforms was awesome because I found myself being able to just add to it quickly.
Yeah.
So I would just write notes down. I love that. Like I used the notes app on my phone, and just wherever I was, I would just, oh wait a minute, that'd be good, or
Yep.
and then being able to highlight, copy, paste, that kind of stuff, just really just kind of keep it in the back of my brain so that anytime something happened, I could just real quickly jot down stuff. Having some people who weren't afraid to speak truth to me was really good too. And I was able to just really have that opportunity to have them read it and give me some honest feedback, and then having to force myself to be humble enough to, take criticism and learn from it, and not get, caught up in, well, they just don't understand, something
Right.
like that. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that's so good. So good. Okay, let's go back for a second. So, what do you say to the skeptic who's like, okay, is it a really a divine appointment, or is it just coincidence? How do you rationalize between the two?
Hey, Jason, I lost audio from you. I can't hear
Uh-oh.
you.
How about now? Anything?
I don't know why.
Still nothing? Oh boy. Yeah, I am out.
There you are. I got you back.
Got me back?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I lost audio.
Okay, but you got me now?
Yeah, I got you now. Can you hear
Okay,
me okay?
let me re-ask the question and we'll go into it. So with our divine appointments, with these situations, what about the skeptic who says, that's just coincidence? Like, how do you distinguish between the two? How do you rationalize between the two?
I think, yeah, I mean, you can always say coincidence, right? I think there's always that ability to do that. But I think that when you start to, I don't know, be open to the possibility that there's bigger than you, and you start to really understand that there are things that there's no way you could have orchestrated, no way you could have controlled, no way it could have happened. You start to realize that, like, that's just different. Like it's a different feeling. It's different, different, I don't know, expectation. But that's interesting. Yeah, I think that, I would a lot of times say, well, what a weird coincidence. But you start to realize, I think of it as like a spider web when you start to see all of these different
Mm,
that connect one thing in the center, and you're like, wait a minute, what are the odds of that? Like,
right.
like people laugh all the time. Like I remember I was at Disney World one time with my family, and we were walking down the street of Disney World, and all of a sudden this lady stops me and says, "Hey, Brad." And it was a lady that we had met a long, long time ago, that she lived in like Texas and we lived in Tennessee. And she starts having this conversation. And then at the end of it, she asked me like a pretty serious question. And she asked me, about just dealing with hurt and pain. And so it was a weird, odd conversation to have at Disney World. But I was like, that's like, that doesn't happen. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, that just doesn't, it doesn't work that way, And I think for me, I think I would just say, in the word Bible tells us to test God's spirit, to test it, to test and see if it's true, taste and see if it's good. And I think a lot of times with coincidences for me or divine appointments, you can kind of test them and see, okay, well, this is truly God orchestrating things in the background. And he's not
Mm.
going to he's not going to force me to do it. He's not going to, shove me into it, but he's going to allow it to happen. So I think that's what those are. I
Yeah.
think especially when it comes to relationships, I think, maybe there's coincidence that I don't know, you saw a blue jay today. That might be coincidental, but when you run into someone at a gas station and you strike up a conversation and that conversation turns into, either an encouragement for you and encouragement for them. I just don't think those are coincidences. I think we serve a God who is orchestrating things beyond our comprehension.
Ooh, that's so powerful. I mean, when you do take a step back and you look at all the different things that led up to that, you said something earlier about, people asking you, about your stories and how come nothing ever happens like that. So do you think there's a correlation between some of these divine appointments and us taking steps of faith, or us trying new things, or us, instead of getting deflated and, hiding, that we kind of, lunge forward and, see what happens? Is there a correlation between the two or no?
Absolutely. I think so. I think when we are brave, when we are adventurous, maybe even, and I don't even mean in like the jumping off a high dive kind of thing. I
Yeah.
mean adventurous is in being open to the opportunity, even just a simple like, hey, okay, God, today, use me today. And I think probably the biggest thing for me and trying to have more conversations that are better and things that are impactful. I think it's been margin for me. I think it's that whole idea that I'm so busy and my schedule is so tight and so insane that, I just think about it this way. I was on this journey of divine appointments and I was really trying to figure out how I could be more available to God. And this is so silly and simple, but I stopped paying for my gas at the pump and I started going inside to the gas station to pay.
Mm.
And the reason I did it is because I was trying to figure out, like, okay, how do I get to? I just moved to Bartlett, Tennessee, where I'm at now, and I was trying to get how do I create community? I work at a church. I'm surrounded by, you know, sometimes odd people, right? Churches full of odd people, but I wanted to be around just regular, normal people, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to start going inside. And so, lo and behold, I went inside. And I got to know the person behind the desk, the counter. I got to know people that came in the same time I came in. Got to build relationships and I got to meet people. And I was just thinking about how easy it is in our world to shortcut intimacy by just avoiding it. I'm talking about
Yep.
like, hey, how quickly can I get from A to B?
Yep.
Even when you come home from come home to your house and you're like, okay, I'm going to close the garage door before I get out of the car so that no one can talk to me. I think when we don't create that margin, we miss out on divine appointments. Is really what it is.
Wow.
One of the coolest things that came from we moved from that neighborhood, so I had to leave, and I was more sad about leaving the gas station than I was about leaving the neighborhood, because my neighbors were, very reluctant to talk to people, but there it just seemed like everyone was happy to see each other. It was so funny. I told the gas station person that my wife was pregnant and that she was craving watermelon, and he made a decision that the slush machine at the gas station would carry watermelon until she was no longer there. And so, I mean, I just little things like that, just relationships that can be built if we were to, slow down a little bit, create some margin in our life and say,
Yep.
I am willing to have these conversations. And you don't have to be a professional speaker to have these conversations. It's simply just if you look at somebody with generous eyes that they can tell that, hey, this person is actually listening to me, it goes a long ways. But yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's that stepping out of your comfort zone. It's that saying to yourself, hey, I'm going to have I want people to love and encourage me more. So I'm going to do it first by stepping
Yep.
out and being open to people. So
So good. You hit on something huge. We use busy as a badge of honor. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. We don't have much margin at all, especially when I do my trainings for financial advisors or insurance agents or, leaders who work with people. A lot of times we get into the bad habit of scheduling our day where it's just back to back to back to back to back. We don't create any margin. What happens if that conversation runs over? Or somebody shows up late, we're behind. It's just amazing what happens in our life when we do schedule for margin and what happens in our life when we actually do have margin. Like do we start to see some more of these divine appointments because our head's not down and we're not just racing? What are some ways that we can, find a little bit more margin in our life so we don't miss some of these divine appointments?
I think for me, what's I was just thinking about this the other day. So I love my Apple Watch. I love it. It alerts me when it's time to do things, and it alerts me all those things. But I've noticed when I have conversations with people, because I get to have just sit down, eat lunch, eat a meal, whatever. When my watch buzzes and I look at my watch, that person immediately starts to assume that
Ooh,
whatever they're talking about or whatever's going on is not important, and I can
yep,
see it in their body language.
yep,
And so I really started to use like the do not disturb feature because everything my watch is telling me is not important. It's like, oh, so and so, the New England Patriots drafted somebody. Like that doesn't matter at that point in time.
yep,
But I think there are like the little things like that, like just my brain is so easily distracted that I don't even realize I'm doing it. But my watch will tap me and I'll look at my watch and look up and that person's like, do you need to go? Am I keeping you from something?
right,
And all of a sudden that conversation went from being just very open and full of information to that person starting to really doubt whether or not what they say matters or if they have time I have time for them. And so I think that has been really cool for me, and I know that sounds simple and like an
yep,
easy task, but just putting things on do not disturb and being in the moment has been helpful. Also just literally creating my schedule with time in part of it. Like I am a scheduled person. Like I use Motion, which is a cool thing that keeps me scheduled and it tells me what I'm doing. But just literally putting times in there for me just to be available,
yeah,
just to be present and to be aware. And then also just that being better at deciding when something's more important than other things.
ooh, yeah,
And so, like when I'm having a conversation, like I like being open to the idea that hey, this is important. Like
yeah,
I have things to do, but they'll get done. So I've been on this PhD journey. I'm so close to being done. But one of the things I've been have to be careful with is that when my kids want to come talk to me and I'm doing schoolwork, I don't want to blow them off
yeah,
because that's study, And so being able to go, you know what, I can stay up a little bit later, or I can do that some other time. This is important. And then
yeah.
just, turning, swiveling in my chair and facing them as opposed to like looking over my shoulder and just giving them the, yeah, uh-huh. And that's hard for me because there are times when I blow them off and I can tell that I don't want them to hate it because I'm going back to school. So
Yep. Oh man, that's so incredibly important. And you just kind of took us on a master class of, boundaries and making sure we have the right perspective. What did I read last week? Somebody wrote, you're the only one who remembered all the late hours you worked. Like your company may not even remember it. Your client may not remember it. Your team that you work with, but your kids probably would remember it. They talked about that in the article about how everybody else might not remember it, but your family would. And so, yes, we have to work hard and do all of that kind of stuff. But, for many of us who are driven, who are leaders, we just push it so hard sometimes that they're the ones who continually have to sacrifice and do that. Talk to us a little bit about challenging situations, when things it just seems like we're in this rut where things are just not going, the way that we want. Life gets really, really hard. It gets harder to see these divine appointments. It gets harder to realize, what's happening. What do we need to embrace in those seasons in order to kind of come out on the other side?
I think we got to keep looking for the good things, the positive things, the small wins.
Yeah.
Not like one of the things that we say around our house all the time is we celebrate what we want more of, right? So you got to celebrate the things that are good. so that those are what you want more of. But I think
Yep.
uh, just really just leaning into those things. And I think I get so where our family is going through a lot. Like my wife just lost her dad. My
Oh,
daughter is diagnosed with a genetic disorder that's just is kicking her butt, but she's doing awesome. My son, I mean, just all of us have some things going on. I had an accident and I had to have surgery on my neck. And, you can just get to where you're sitting outside and like me on the back porch, just kind of reeling and just the why, like, why
yep.
now? Like, why
Yep.
all of this? Like, this is too much. Like, I don't understand. Like, how could this possibly happen? And then, it's for me, I'm blessed to have my wife and other people in my life who, I always like to laugh and say, I'm so glad that we're both not overwhelmed at the same time. Like, I'm glad that one of us can look at each other and go, hey, we got this. Like, we got this. Like, we got this. Like, God's been faithful to us all the way up to now. He's not going to stop now. And so I think for
Yeah.
me, just when really hard times are there, I think it's one of those things where I can choose to be overwhelmed by it and get grumpy and mean, or I can look for an opportunity
Yes.
to be the light and be the love that someone else needs.
Yep.
Like if that's where I desperately need, then there's other people around me who desperately need it. And there's something special about even in the midst of my pain, being able to be used by God to help someone else is huge.
Yep.
It starts the cycle again, right? Like, that idea that like I can start this whole, okay, let's get back into it. Let's be who we wanted to be, who we called to be, the kind of person we were trying to be. Let's be that person no matter our situation, because of the character we are and who we are. I think for me, those are, unfortunately, I have to learn that same thing over and over and over again. Like I don't know why. Like I wish there was like one time I learned it, I'd be like, hey, don't forget that. But now it's like, okay, it's been 3 weeks, like quit. Like how to get out of this rut, then do it. And
Yep.
so, but man, I'm addicted to disappearing when I get into ruts. Like I
Ooh.
love to, hey, how can I let me go watch a Netflix series for like, 12 hours and avoid everything.
Yep.
And yet, every time I do it, it doesn't help. So I
Yeah.
have not, it's yet to help me. But the things that do help me are the just getting up, and doing small things, and just taking one step at a time. And I think that, I don't know, just being, I'm just, it's so cool to be a part of these moments with
Yeah.
people. And so I think it's addictive too. Like, I think once you start to see opportunities, even when you're in a bad spot, like when you see those opportunities, it's really cool. Like, I know for me, just having chronic pain and going through stuff with my daughter, the people that we've met and we've been able to look at them and go, hey, we understand what you're saying. Like,
Yep.
there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy
Oof.
is, oh, I feel bad for you. Empathy is, I know what you're going through because I'm there too. And so I think that those are divine appointments too, that God doesn't necessarily, I don't think, I don't believe that God calls my problems, but I do think God uses my problems and my heartaches and heart problems just to say, hey, there's other people in the world who are going through it too. And, we weren't meant to do this alone. And so I
Oof.
think being able to have empathy with other people, it doesn't take away all the nonsense, but it also says, okay, some good can come out of this. Like, it's nice to
Wow.
be with other people.
Wow. Wow. So powerful. Yeah. I mean, you said a couple of things, many things that I'm like, oh my goodness, that's just gold. The one was making me feel like I wasn't alone. Like, it's amazing some of the lessons that I continually have to learn. Like, why didn't I pick up on this when I was 22 and then 32 and then 42?
Yeah.
Um, but even what you just talked about with, sometimes going through your situation, needing to learn, the other day I was complaining some back pain, and then I turned on the TV and it was the Paralympics, and there were some athletes who were shooting a bow and arrow with no arms. And I
With
was
their
like,
feet.
yeah, I was like, what do I have to complain about?
Yeah.
Like,
I
what
was
is my
actually in
problem?
physical I was in physical therapy and it was on the TV, that exact thing. And
Oh,
so I'm in there feeling bad for myself because my neck hurts and all that. And I'm like, did that lady just shoot a bullseye with her feet? Like, oh my gosh. Like, and when you're all laughing
right.
in there, we're all laughing. I was like, what in the world? Like, man, how? I don't know. God just made us so powerful that we can overcome
That's
so
right.
much if we're willing to do it. And so I was just watching this person, and that's been the challenge for my daughter with her stuff too, is that it's not about not doing things. It's about figuring out how to do them differently now. And I think that just, yeah, I was blown away by that too. It's crazy. So
Wow. Wow. Yeah, you and I, off camera, we've shared many conversations about, kid pain over the years and some of the stuff that our kids have gone through. I mean, it's just I watched an interview the other day with John Cena, and the big WWE guy, the actor, and he
yeah,
just said, "Yeah,
yeah.
we're not having kids." He's like, "I got too much to accomplish. I can't do it with kids." And part of my heart broke, because I was like, "Oh man, like you learn so much when, your universe doesn't revolve around you and you have to care for these other people." And then there was a sliver of me that was jealous. I was like, "Yeah, imagine what we'd be able to accomplish if we had, we didn't have our family." And then the other massive part was like, "But I don't want that. Like they're all I care about and want them to succeed." For our listeners who are struggling with family members going through stuff, what advice, encouragement, just because you've walked down some painful roads, any advice, encouragement you'd give them as they just kind of keep focus on caring for the people that they love?
I think we have learned that we can't be afraid to talk about it as a family,
Mm,
um, and be honest with each other that it's hard.
yeah.
Um, and I think that for us, it's been a journey. Um, I think the biggest thing that our daughter has it's told us is that she wonders if it's worth it for all of us to go through it.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think reinforcing that I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Like, yes, like I'm not going to lie, it's hard and it's
Yeah.
difficult and it's financially challenging and all those things. But
Yep.
oh my God, I can't imagine life without her. And so I think not avoiding the conversations has been good. Being honest when we are overwhelmed, being honest with the other people in our lives when we truly need a break. And and also I don't know if you have other kids, making sure that other kid doesn't feel left out in the process,
Wow.
because I know that for us, you focus so much on the one who's going through the tough things that the other one feels obligated to not be difficult because everyone else is so overwhelmed with them that they become, not forgotten, but just they you need to be we need to be more intentional with
Yep.
everybody. You know what I'm saying? Say,
Yep.
um, and so that's been super important for us, and we've learned that over the years. And yeah, I would say just finding a community, finding other people who you can um, just kind of vent to as well,
Yep.
has been huge. Like I said, finding those people with empathy, I think that's huge.
Yep.
Yeah, and I
I
think
love that.
and unfortunately, you have to be humble too, right? You have to be humble enough to speak out loud some of the things you're struggling with. It's funny to me that a lot of times, it usually, like I've been in so many different small groups of people, and it usually takes that one person in the group to be transparent and humble and say, "This is what I'm struggling with," and
Yeah.
then that group turns from a small group to a family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because everyone in the
Yeah.
group is struggling and they all need help. They're just all trying to fake it until they make it. And so
Yep.
when you finally have someone who steps up and says, "Man, I am struggling," and yeah, it changes the dynamic. So just reminding myself of that like there's probably more people around me who could help me if I was more honest about how overwhelmed I am at times.
Wow.
So
Goodness, that's so powerful. So powerful. Man. Wow. Absolutely. What's a takeaway that you'd give our listeners, especially when it comes from, keeping your eyes open, looking for these divine appointments, being a part of them?
yeah, there's a fantastic story about this British soldier from World War II who was captured in Africa. And he has to go on this grueling march from Africa all the way to Germany. And his story talks about how people were dying all around him, and it was just horrible and atrocious. And It was the worst thing he'd ever experienced, and he was praying daily that God would just kill him. And he wasn't sure why God was keeping him alive, because people that were dead seemed to be better off than him. And he got to this one city, and out of nowhere, this small girl breaks through the crowd that's yelling, cheering at him, calls him. This one little girl hands him a peach. And he talks about how it was the giantest, most amazing peach he'd ever had in his entire life. And that peach kept him alive for the rest of the war. And I just think that, man, like when we step into divine appointments, we have the opportunity to be, they don't know her name. She probably doesn't have any idea what she did. She probably has no clue that it was that big of a deal. But like, there are small, insignificant little things that we could be a part of that could fundamentally change people's lives
Yep.
if we were just not so selfish.
Yep.
And so I think that there's just, and it's happened to me so many times in my life where I've had people that have just loved on me at the right time, in the right place. And, I just feel like we think that if we don't have millions of dollars, or we don't have, lots of degrees, or we don't have all this knowledge, we can't impact. But I think just the idea that little peach was it for him. That was what gave him hope for the rest of his story. And I think that there are some people out there that have, for lack of a better phrase, and these things that they could give to other people, whether they feel small or insignificant to them, that could change people's lives. And we just can't do this on our own. Like we can't make it on our own.
Yep.
And I think that the more we get focused, the better we are at looking for opportunities to love people, and opportunity to be a part of people's lives, whether or not we're in it for 5 seconds or in it for 10 years. I think if we're willing to let God use us, man, we can be a part of a cooler, bigger story, and it gives us more purpose. So that's kind of where I'm like, just learning that, just kind of trying to figure that out. Like, and in my book, I talk about it, but there's, some appointments for us, some appointments for other people, some appointments from God are unfortunately hard lessons to learn, and it's the whole thing is not about us. Like that's the big takeaway too. It's not about us. And if we start trying to make it about us, it never works. But if we start making it about God and the people around us, then that's when things change. So, yeah.
Oh, so powerful. Well, hey, before I let you go, I want to do some rapid fire questions. This has been so incredible. We're putting together this online communicators and leadership resource where people can go and just get new ideas and be inspired. But is there a speaker, someone that every time you hear them, they just fill your bucket, you can't wait to pass on, their talk or message or whatever it is, that you would just recommend to other people?
I'm a fan of John Acuff. I really like when he speaks. There's something about the way he connects, the way he uses stories, illustrations, those kind of things. It fits well with me. I am a big fan of his, but there's lots of other speakers out there, but for some reason that's the one that popped into mind immediately.
I love it.
So, yeah.
If you're a podcast person, is there a podcast that either guilty pleasure or development that you're like, I just keep going back to it? I forward stuff on.
Well, your Speak with People is my favorite podcast.
Well, thank you.
I do listen to it, but I also listen to, what's his name? Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of that. And then The Art of Manliness, I actually listen to it quite a bit too. I like both of those. But yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, those have been good. And I've been listening to Jordan Peterson too. I don't know if you listen to him at all or not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I find him, he has, I don't always agree with everything he says, but that's good for me. I need to listen to people that I don't always agree with, but man, he makes me pause a lot and go back and like study. You know what I'm talking about? I'm like, wait a minute a second. I got to figure this out. Like, what did he just say? So I have enjoyed that too. So
I love it. And then lastly, is there a book, someone's about to get stranded on a desert island, barring, a book about how to survive on a desert island, but a book that, every leader's just got to read at least once. What would your book be?
A Failure of Nerve. Have you ever read that book?
A Failure of what?
A Failure of Nerve.
Oh, wow.
By Friedman. So I'm going through, so I did I got my master's in leadership from Moody, and then get my doctorate, PhD in leadership development and teaching from Liberty. And of all the books I've read, A Failure of Nerve has probably been the one that has really, it was the most challenging one. And like it it kind of forces you. It basically is saying that there's a lot of good leaders out there who aren't making the hard decisions because of anxiety and stress, and they take the easy way out, and they have a failure of nerve. They fail to do exactly what they know they're supposed to do, but they just don't
Wow.
actually do it. And so it's not it's not a prop you up kind of book.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
more of a smack in the face, but
That's right.
it's a good book. It's been around for a while, but yeah, it's called A Failure of Nerve. So
I
check
love
it
that.
out.
I love that.
It's yeah.
Well, where can we find out more about you online, get your book, all that kind of stuff?
Well, my book's on Amazon, and that's pretty much it right now. We're trying to get it in other places, and so grateful that a small publishing company picked us up, and we're trying to get it into other locations. But right now, that's about it. It's on Amazon, and you can search Divine Appointments, and there's not a lot of books out there about divine appointments. So thankfully, my book comes up quick,
Hey,
and so uh,
that's
and
amazing.
so yeah, that's kind of all we got right now. And so
I love
I'm
it.
trying to figure out taking
I lo-
small steps in this world of authorship. It's a new
That's right.
world for me.
That's right. Well, we'll
Yeah,
definitely put it in the show notes and we'll put it in our Facebook group and just so appreciate you taking the time, Brad. Again, appreciate your friendship all these years. Really thank you for putting these thoughts into a place where we can go and figure some of these out. So thanks for your time and looking forward. Ooh, I'm trying to figure when this airs, but I'll be with you guys in Memphis sooner than later.
we're excited about having you come up. So yeah, we can continue our conversation, off air. But yeah, I was looking forward to you being there, and our people are looking forward to you coming too. And so ready to, I think, just you can't give you. I don't think you'll ever waste time getting better at communicating, right? Like it's never a waste, right? And so I think, especially for us, like those of us who we have some important stuff to share when it comes to God and Jesus, and man,
Yep.
getting better at communicating that is always important. So thank you.
Wow.
Thanks for letting me be on the show, man. Appreciate
I
it.
love it. Well, thanks for ending with that because I just wrote down that quote and that is gold. So it's awesome. Well, thanks again. And we'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. Thank you for leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And thank you for every like and every comment. Every single time you cut and copy a link and send it to a coworker or a friend, it absolutely means the world and it helps each other transform our communication skills. Lastly, don't forget about a great resource that's available to you, our communication skills library. At the end of every episode, we ask each guest their favorite speaker, their favorite podcast, their favorite book, and we've compiled all of those resources together to give you an amazing library to continue your growth and development. Thank you again for being a listener and for being a part of the Speak with People community.